In the early days of the Nazi regime, Hitler made a perfect promise to German women: kitchen, church, children. In the imperial logic of that time, women were the guardians of purity, motherhood, and the home. However, by 1944, as the map of the Third Reich crumbled like withered leaves under the tracks of Soviet tanks, this lie collapsed. The streets of Berlin no longer smelled of perfume, but of scorched earth and gunpowder. To fill the massive labor shortage at the front, the Nazis launched a frantic mobilization known as Total War. Over 500,000 young women were drafted into the Wehrmacht Auxiliaries, female auxiliaries. Many of them were university students from Berlin, piano teachers from Munich, or girls who had once dreamed of weddings by the Rhine. Now, they were forced to trade silk for coarse, dark uniforms, picking up radio headsets and even standing behind the sights of 88mm anti-aircraft guns. These women, nicknamed Blitzmädel, lightning girls, were depicted in Nazi propaganda as noble and fanatical protectors. But when they reached the Eastern Front and faced Soviet guards crawling out seas of blood, they realized that imperial glory was as fragile as paper against a torrent of steel. As defenses outside Berlin were torn apart, these women, never trained for hand-to-hand combat, became the largest and most awkward victim group in military history. When Soviet soldiers found them in the ruins, they were huddled by radio sets, with the last waltzes of Berlin radios still playing in their headsets, while outside, the roar of Soviet Katyusha rockets shook the world. Being captured was only the prologue to the nightmare for these German women. In the summer of 1945, while Europe bathed in the joy of victory, tens of thousands of Nazi female auxiliaries faced a trial spanning half the globe. At Soviet POW collection points, their military insignia were brutally torn off, and codes replaced their names. They were told that as accomplices of fascist Germany, they had to atone for the destroyed Soviet homelands through labor. The true horror began in the freight trains known as boxcars. Each narrow wooden car was packed with 50 to 60 women. No seats, no beds, only a crude wooden bucket in the center. During this long journey deep into Siberia, time lost its meaning, leaving only eternal darkness, cold, and a growing stench. Due to the chronic lack of drinking water and sanitation, typhus and dysentery broke out rapidly. For these women who once valued refinement, the complete loss of physiological dignity was the ultimate despair. At wilderness stops for supplies, they were forced to carry out their most private daily activities under the gaze of Soviet guards. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs like a poisonous snake. To trade for a piece of moldy black bread, some surrendered their last jewels or faced even darker exchanges. As the train crossed the Ural Mountains into the desolate heart of Asia, and the doors occasionally opened, it wasn't just trash that was thrown out, but also the cold bodies of women who had died in the night from fever or heartbreak. They died on the road to the unknown, without even a headstone to record that they had ever existed in this world. When the iron doors of the boxcars slammed open in the Siberian gale, these German women were confronted with a wilderness beyond all their civilized comprehension. The names here were no longer Berlin or Munich, but Labor Camp Number 122 or Special Settlement Zone 408. Here, 40 degrees below zero was a daily reality, and the only currency for survival was physical strength. These women, once portrayed in Nazi propaganda as elegant Wehrmacht auxiliaries, now had to learn how to use massive crosscut saws and dig foundations in permafrost. The hardest part was not just physical destruction, but the omnipresent hunger. Every morning, they lined up for a few hundred grams of black bread mixed with sawdust and a cabbage soup as thin as water. To survive, these well-educated women showed incredible adaptability. They began scavenging for edible roots in the snow and fashioned crude stoves from discarded tin cans. More complex was their relationship with the surrounding environment. The labor camps were not entirely sealed. They had to interact with local Soviet peasants who were equally impoverished. Initially, this relationship was fraught with hostility. Soviet women loathed these fascist invaders whose war had taken their husbands and sons. However, over time, a strange survival mutual aid emerged. German female captives used their superior sewing skills to mend clothes for peasants in exchange for a few withered potatoes. They held small concerts in crude barracks, singing in both German and Russian. In those moments, cold political labels paled in the face of sheer hunger and cold. Beyond heavy physical labor, the Soviets launched a grander project, the remodeling of the soul. The NKVD believed these women, steeped in Nazi ideology, had to undergo a thorough ideological cleansing. Thus, in the crude mess halls of the labor camps, alongside thin potato soup came intensive political lessons. They were required to read the German edition of Das Kapital and watch documentaries exposing the atrocities of Nazi concentration camps. For these women who once viewed Hitler as a savior, this was a devastating cognitive blow. When images of the corpse piles at Auschwitz and medical reports from Ravensbrück appeared on the screen, a deathly silence fell over the barracks. Many began to reflect, was the empire we were so proud of truly built upon such bloodshed? However, remodeling was not always smooth. Within the so-called anti-fascist committees, female POWs were encouraged to report each other's stubborn thoughts. This internal conflict, fueled by fear and opportunism, made the air in the barracks tense. Some became extremely proactive to gain early repatriation, while others chose to secretly hum Lily Marlene at night, searching for a homeland they could never return to in their memories. This tearing of the soul made them shiver more than the Siberian wind. They were no longer pure Nazis, yet they couldn't truly become communists. They had become wanderers in the cracks of history. In the early 1950s, following diplomatic negotiations, the first groups of German women imprisoned in Siberia for years were finally allowed to be repatriated. For them, this was more than a physical return, it was a brutal collision of the soul. As the train crossed the invisible Iron Curtain, and the scenery outside changed from desolate birch forests to the scarred ruins of Germany, these women, known as Siberian returnees, did not feel the anticipated ecstasy. The homeland was no longer the place they had left. Berlin was split in two, and the Nazi ideology had been thoroughly liquidated. Most heartbreaking was the suffocating indifference the home society showed toward their return. In West Germany, people were busy with the economic miracle and eager to erase painful war memories. These women, labeled as POWs and weathered by hardship, became awkward reminders. In East Germany, their experiences were branded as reactionary or unspeakable. The Russian language they learned in the wasteland became a secret they dared not speak at home. They found that although they had escaped the physical barbed wire, they had fallen into a larger, invisible cage built of social coldness. Decades have passed, and that history of female POWs in Soviet Russia has been swept like dust into the corners of archives. For a long time, these women chose collective silence. They married, had children, worked, and lived as ordinary people, never revealing to their descendants the nights spent logging at 40 below zero or the moments they traded dignity for potatoes. Why did they remain silent? Because it was a history that could not be categorized. They were both participants in a war of aggression and victims of extreme atrocities. This dual identity left them with no place in any mainstream narrative. Recording this history is not about settling old scores, but about restoring the truest face of war. It didn't just destroy cities and territories, it completely shattered the life trajectories of a generation of women. The roses of Ravensbrück and the wastelands of Siberia together form the complete map of female POWs in World War II. As the last witness departs, only these words and images speak for those silent souls. War has no gender, nor does suffering. May the flowers of Nazi Germany forgotten behind the Red Iron Curtain finally be laid to rest as human beings in the final narrative.